I'm Markus. I'm a developer at Artificial Labs, and we have our office just down at Bank. And yeah, today I'm going to tell you why you should be using convention over configuration, as you've already seen before. I know you're not going to have a car accident, but this is just to show the point from like an outer perspective. We have conventions all around us in our lives, even if we don't think about it. And well, one example being us on the streets. We have rules, we have conventions that we follow, that we don't, that we minimize car accidents. And it even goes as far that in 90% of the countries on this planet, we drive on the same side, England being one of the few exceptions. Yeah, and it even goes as far that some of my friends who come and visit me from home, they're like, no, I'm coming here, I'm not driving here because I'm used to drive on the other side. I guess breaking conventions isn't always the best. No, but we're here, of course, to talk about conventions in your code, in Node.js. And yeah, I'm going to, okay, it's a bit cut off, the slide. Oof, well, I'm going to come back to the slide later anyway and explain to you what the point of it is. But before we talk about conventions, let's give some definition that we all know what we're actually talking about, so that we have, like a common understanding. So yeah, the way I would define it is, it's a set of defined configurations that formalizes agreed upon best practices. So the point of conventions within your code, within your Node.js app, is that you don't have to think about how you set up things, how you do things. You think about it once, you write them down, and then you're going to use them in everything that you do, basically. Your whole team, so the point is that your whole team has the same conventions to follow, has the same rules that they follow, and that you do them once, and then you don't always, whenever you make a new app, you don't have to think, oh, how am I going to set up this Angular app? How am I going to set up this Express app? How am I going to do this? You know exactly, like, this is where I put my files. This is, like how I do it. And I'm going to show you, as this talk goes along, what benefits you can get if you follow this kind of principles. And I would say one of the main goals is that it really delivers is automation, and I think that's really what it comes down to in the end. And yeah, but before we get to the conventions in your code, I again want to show how we actually have conventions in JavaScript as well. So for example, if we look at promises, everyone here familiar with JavaScript's promises? Cool. Yeah, I mean, now it's, it's implemented in Node.js, I think since 0.12, and also in io.js. But I remember the first time I heard of promises, I was like, what exactly is this? What is this doing for me? And I was, trying to look into it, trying to use it, and on the one hand, I had the issue to, I needed to figure out what it is. But then when I looked at all the implementations, you had like all these different libraries having their own like little slightly different APIs of how promises are implemented. And if even now when you look on NPM, you have like dozens of promise libraries still. And Bluebird, one of the most prominent one, has like dozens of deprecations of old API that's doesn't agree with the standard anymore. And so it's good to come to one norm, to come to one standard, to come to one convention, one could say, that we all know when we talk about promises, we talk about the implementation that you see down there. You know, when another coder when another developer comes to you and he says, "I have an issue with this code," you know exactly, okay, these are promises, this is how it's implemented, and you don't have to look up, oh, is this npm package that he's using that uses this version of promises. And here's just a little example of how promise implementation is done wrong. That's one of our favorite libraries, or not, jQuery. And they've implemented promises in a different way than it's now standard. And because of backwards compatibility, we will probably always have this broken implementation. But yeah, so even in languages, we have implementations that are just like user implemented things, and then when enough people start using his best practices form around like a certain implementation, and then we get a specification or a convention we implement in the language, and now we all of a sudden like we can talk about it, and like that's really what convention over configuration is, or this part of what configuration over convention over configuration is about. But now, talking a little bit more about something more practical in your code, I think more like bigger impact kind of stuff. Well, this is supposed to be a pull request from one of an open source project that I contribute to, and that's again just to show another example. So this is a pull request that implements ESLint. Have any of you heard of ESLint? Yeah, it's similar to JSHint, and like the purpose of it is like you write down the style codes that your program follows, that your app follows, and then you can write a test or whatever, you have a grunt tool that checks that. So everyone, immediately when they code on your app, they know exactly which style conventions to follow. And I think here these tools, they really just go the first step, so they give you the power to formalize your style conventions and to write them down. But then what I'm going to show you in a little bit, they don't really do the next step, and that is, I think that's the automation bit, which is like they could, in theory, also have an option that they just, like they know the rules, they know what's wrong, so they could also change it for you, and instead of just tell you like this is wrong, go and fix it in the code. So I think there is still like room to truly follow the convention over configuration spirit. But it's a tool that has similar principles. And yeah, now to really get to the stuff that I think has the biggest impact, and that's like when like people talk about convention over configuration, like Ruby on Rails, probably the most prominent example, which you might have heard of. And yeah, so it's really just a way, as I said, like how you can structure your app. And I'm sure like a lot of you are familiar with it. This is just like a model controller structure that we know from MVC. And the benefit here really is like you can follow this structure, and like you just follow, like, and when another person looks at it, they know where to find the files. But I think where really the true, the true benefits of conventions lies when your app actually knows about the structure as well, when it knows about the conventions. And as I showed with ESLint, it helps you as a developer. But if the app knows about it, so here, for example, we have a user model and we have a user controller. And so, for example, if you want to write a REST API, it can just automatically create for you a user root and just attach all like the HTTP, the whole protocol to this resource. So that's all you really do is you give your app a file, 2 files. You don't write a single line of code, and because the app knows, okay, the model is defined here, the controller is defined here with this name, and then the names match, I can create for you a route with the same name. And if people of you have worked with that, that's sort of like what's called the magic behind convention over configuration, but it's really just the app knowing your conventions. And I'm going to show you an example of how this actually works out, and like how this really like looks like in real life if you think about using that yourself. So a project that I work on, it's called SaneStack, and have you heard of Sales.js, Ember.js? A show of hands of people. Yeah, okay, a fair few. So yeah, those are like 2 of the most prominent example about convention over configuration in the JavaScript space. There's 1 or 2 other that I'm going to mention afterwards. And SaneStack basically just builds on top of that and just gives you a full front-end and back-end framework that is built on top of conventions. And you don't have to work just, you don't have to use conventions just in web apps, or like you can use it in any app really, but that's just currently the biggest implementations, and it's a nice way to show that off. It would be good, in fact, if like afterwards you build your own tool that like helps you with conventions in different kinds of apps. But anyway, so I've prepared a little demonstration. Let's close this for a minute. Yep. So usually like this. Oh yeah. Okay. Also, let's make this bigger. Yes. So because the tool knows how your folder structure is, it can also create everything for you. And that's the point. It's like most of these tools, Sales and Ember both, and Sane come all with a command line tool. And all you do is you just write Sane new, let's just call it admin2, and it goes off, and in the background it creates the whole folder structure. No, we don't. It creates the whole folder structure for you, like downloads all the default starting packages. And as this sets up, I can switch over to the project that I have already set up. Oops, I do not want to quit. So if we just show that very quick. So you can see that, oh, can you not? Okay, let's see. Oh yeah, there we go. So yeah, you can see that you have a server, you have a client, and if you just cd into this, that's basically like what the tool spits out. So it gives you like, here you see controllers, models, views, templates, like what you would expect basically from an MVC app. And let's just fire this up real quick to show you how this looks. So this is now starting a server for the backend for the Sales.js apps, and at the same time starting the front-end server for your Ember.js app. And yeah, so I've already, that's a route that I have. Let's see. Okay. Let's minimize this. Oh, I do not want that. Okay, let's just record this. So, oh, come on. What the hell? click to record, good. Anyway, so this is something that I've already created. So Sales is really meant as an API framework, so you don't really get an interface in the backend. And on the front end, I'm using an add-on that basically provides you an admin interface. And I'm just going to show you real quick, without writing a line of code, I'm getting a fully functional admin interface that is all set up completely automatically. So if I'm in here on the command line, yep, there we go. And all I write is saying generate resource houses, maybe. Price, number, address, string. And because, again, the tool knows how my conventions for my application is set up, it can automatically create the right files in the right place, and then during runtime, apply rules to automatically create stuff for me. So yeah, now if I go to the front end, I didn't even have to do anything because of auto reload. It automatically picked up the new resource that I created on the front end, and now you have a very simple admin interface, and I can immediately create a new house, and it gets saved immediately through the REST API into the database, and I didn't have to write a single line of code for that. So for example, let's give it 10, Main Street. Let's do this as well. So now we save it, it shows up here. We see in the network channel that it did indeed send a JSON package to the backend. And also if we go to the backend, we can see that this all automatically created the API for you and saved it to the database. And that was all based on the app actually knowing the conventions of your app. So back to the presentation. Yeah, so that's, I think, really where the power lies of having conventions, is really like following them through like to the max. And it doesn't mean once you have a convention that you rigorously have to stick to them and like never change, move, or adapt them. So for example, here on this side, you actually see already a new convention that has now formed in the MLJS world. And it's not that you have a typical MVC structure anymore, but now you have what's called a pod structure, which is more like based on web components. So you have like, if you have a dashboard, you have a folder for your dashboard, and you have your model view, everything in this little like pod folder. And so it's really just about maximizing your efficiency, but also taking away the mundane, to think about the mundane tasks that you would have to think about otherwise everywhere. Like, I mean, just think about it. I know before I found all these, I was almost, where should I put these files? How should I split the JavaScript files? How should I do this and that? And yeah, now I don't spend a single second thinking about it anymore. And also actually a quite interesting fact about conventions. Node.js actually has a quite cool convention. Like when you install npm modules, they're in the node modules folder. And if you have your own node modules folder in your own app folder, you can require everything as it were like an installed app. So this is also like a convention you could build in, that is built in with Node and npm. If you just drop everything into your own, if you drop your own modules into your Node modules folder, you can easily require them in the whole app. So that's also pretty cool. And yeah, just to finish off, I've just basically created a slide like the tools that I know of that are built around conventions. So I mean, ESLint not directly, but it's just on there, so you see to see what the tool is that I've shown before. Then as I mentioned, Sails and Ember.js, and on top of that, the same stack. Yes, you can see it all, good. And another quite cool project, which is also for everyone who's not in the web area, which is called Node Machine. And it is actually from the Sails.js creators, but it's really just conventions around any node function. And the point of that is that you write your functions in a certain way, and then it automatically creates documentation online for you. And as soon as you publish the Node Machine, it automatically publishes the documentation for you online based on the conventions, and it's pretty cool. So yeah, that's was what I wanted to show you. And yeah, if any of you is interested, ask me any questions afterwards, or talk to me about any of that. Yeah, this is how you can get in touch with me. Thank you.
Okay. If you have any questions, that's the right time. Raise your hands, I'll bring you the microphone. No questions?
Good.
Are you sure? Yes, question.
Just want to say that was really good. And then also with node modules, that's actually the npm.js coding guidelines. They don't have a lib folder, they throw everything in node modules, and I do that, and it makes life really easy. So,
that's awesome.
Hooray.
Awesome. Good to hear.
Any other question or praise? No? Okay. Well, thanks. Round of applause and
thank you.